Since most families don't expect to have a child with special needs, you might find the answers you are looking for and support through early childhood intervention. Early childhood intervention services support families and children in various situations, from birth up to 7 years of age. Families with children with disabilities often have to travel for examinations and expert care. The child is forced to meet with experts in the environment of various outpatient offices. Therefore, the early childhood intervention counselor visits the family in their home as often as the family needs it and helps them in their decision-making. The difficulties associated with a child's disability can result in stressful interactions for the family or isolation from their extended family or social community. That's why the early childhood intervention counselors look for ways to strengthen the family and how their relationships within the extended family and social network can be included. Uncertainty and fear that their child's development won't be supported adequately generally forces the parents of children with special needs to pour all of their hope into specialists. It causes them to not trust or act on their own capacities and intuition. That's why the early childhood intervention counselor works with the parents to find possible solutions within the skills they have so they can implement them into the child's everyday life. Parents of children with special needs often succumb to the false impression that only specialized therapies in a medical environment can help their children develop their abilities, skills, and autonomy. Early childhood intervention services support parents in making good use of learning moments in everyday activities in a natural setting. Families of children with special needs encounter various obstacles on a daily basis, creating sustained pressure on the family and leading to situations in which they can't find the answers. Early childhood intervention services provide the family with information and give them strength so that they can gradually set their priorities and overcome obstacles on their own. The aim of early childhood intervention services is to support the family and their child in maximum self-sufficiency. Every child needs friends and to feel that they are a part of a community. The early childhood intervention services support the family in choosing an environment that would offer the child opportunities for further development. The counselor communicates with educators and helps align the parents' ideals with services offered by various facilities. Successful inclusion of the child in a community will enable both parents to return to work.
Good afternoon, dear colleagues, dear participants. What a heartwarming little video clip, isn't it? And that is exactly what we will discuss today. How can we support families? How can we support children in such a way that they can live a full life and that they can live as a family? You're with well over 700 today, using different platforms and different ways to join us. And although we are all tired of this online working and these online events, we must, I think, admit that technology also has some very strong positive elements. Thanks to technology, we can be together here from different parts and corners of Europe to discuss this very important topic. Before diving into our afternoon event, some technical guidance and information given by Tim Gislin, who is project manager and head of projects at Espd. Tim, you have the floor.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. So this conference, you will have the opportunity to follow in your own preferred language. You have translation in Hungarian, Bulgarian, Romanian, Slovak, Polish, and Russian, as well as English. It will be both ways, so don't hesitate to, speakers can speak in their own language and you can listen to the language you prefer. For that, you have to go at the bottom of your screen and there will be interpretation where you can choose the one that you prefer. The webinar will be recorded except for the presentation of Bruce Perry and will be made available on social media channel on YouTube. Your microphone is muted and speakers will mute the microphone when they are not presenting so that you can have enjoy the presentation as well as possible. For question, I invite you to go on the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen so that you can write there all your questions and comments and that speakers can interact with you throughout the session. You can also interact with other attendants and panelists in the chat. It's just that there the speakers will have a hard time seeing your comments as it might be all cluttered. You can also activate closed captioning by clicking the live transcript button at the still bottom of your screen to follow the conference however you prefer. Don't hesitate to get back to any of the panelists or ESPD after the event, and we'll be able to also share presentations with who is interested and follow up future conversations that will be certainly sparked with this very interesting panel. Thank you very much and enjoy the conference.
Thank you, Tim, for this very clear information. And of course, thanks a lot for the hard work you did on this project together with the partnership. Dear colleagues, again, welcome at this event. On behalf of my organization, ESPD, and ESPD is the European Association of Service Providers for Persons with Disabilities. We were the lead partner in this project. But what we have done would not have been possible if we would not have had this very fruitful cooperation with the different partners that helped us to realize the objectives of this project. I also would like to thank the Velux Foundation for financing this project. Also without Velux, this would not have been possible. And I'm very happy to announce already now that we have a representative of the Velux Foundation with us. He will take the floor in a few minutes from now. Dear colleagues, today we discuss early childhood intervention. By changing the beginning of the story, we change the whole story. We all know it from our daily practice and from research that we did, that segregation of children with a disability, wrong treatment, school dropout, difficult family relations, it often starts at a very young age. It often starts quite soon after birth already. When a child with a disability is born, when the extra support needs become clear and there is no support, there is no correct assessment of the support needs, and there is no family support available, then that quite often is the start of a difficult story, a story of segregation and frustration. So let's try to turn this bad beginning upside down, and let's try to organize early childhood support through early childhood intervention. Let's try to support a family so that they can take care of their child with support needs. Let's support the child so that the child can develop in the way it can develop. Let's provide professional support where needed, but not taking over the role of the parents. The research is clear. The earlier it starts, the better. ESPD, as an umbrella network, invests in implementation of early childhood intervention across the European continent. And we do this with great pleasure with all the partners involved. We wish you a very nice, inspiring event, And we really hope that together we will make we will have a real impact on the lives of children with support needs and their families. And now I would like to give the floor to MEP Lucia Durish-Nicholson, who is the chair of the Committee on Employment and Social Affairs, to bring in also the perspective of herself, I'm sure, but also the European Parliament. Madam Nicholson, you have the floor.
Thank you very much for giving me the floor, and let me start with a story. The story is about Kate. Kate is an 8-year-old child with middle heart autistic spectrum disorder. Kate's mother is a hairdresser from a small Slovak village, and she is a single mother. When Kate was 2.5 years old, she was diagnosed by a pediatrician with autism. So what do I do now? Her mother asked. Well, now you have to find a therapist, the doctor said. Where? Well, that I cannot tell you. There are none available in our district. As Kate's mother was looking for help among doctors, one of them even advised her, you know, in this country, it is better to place autistic children in orphanage. Kate's mother was shocked. She did not understand how this could come from a doctor. The closest therapist was 90 kilometers away from Kate in Košice. There was no preschool facility in their district that would accept autistic Kate. Her mother found a retired neighbor to take care of Kate while she was working. The family was very low on money, as her mother's income hardly covered the rent and the babysitting. When the therapist finally called, Anna had to refuse the therapist because she did not have money to pay for it. At the age of 7, Kate started a special school. Her mother had to drive her 40 kilometers every single day. Kate does not thrive. She struggles at school and she struggles at home. The pediatrician as well as the teachers at school say this is because she did not get the therapy at the very early stage. Now, I am very, very happy that the Commission has adopted a strategy for the rights of persons with disabilities 2021-2030, but early childhood intervention is not yet available in many countries, my country included, and I am afraid the strategy will not be enough if things continue the way they are. Despite the fact that the government of the Slovak Republic has committed to assisting those with disabilities in the government program statement for the years 2020 and 2024, the situation for children with disabilities and socially deprived children is completely unacceptable. The children do not get the assistance they need. Their families are left alone with no or very little help from the state. What is stopping us from providing the early childhood intervention to the children who need it? What is actually stopping us from helping children with disabilities, to children with autism, to children who live in poverty? Why is the situation of the Roma communities at the very back of our interest? Firstly, the money is not spent in the right way. Kate's case is the common reality today, despite the data showing us that timely help is a benefit for the whole of society, economically as well as in the quality of their lives. Studies prove that giving early help to children with disabilities and to children who are socially deprived positively affects the quality of their daily lives in the future. Secondly, the children are not being helped because conventions and recommendations are being ignored. At the EU level and the international level, we have adopted numerous documents: Convention on the Rights of the Child, Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and also the European 2020 strategy, Child Guarantee, which explicitly recommends member states to address early childhood education and care. So the recommendations are on the table, but countries are ignoring them. And the third reason why the children are not being helped is that we suffer from a lack of experts. They are too expensive and they are very far away from those who live in the countryside, for instance. At least this is the situation in Slovakia. This means we are not able to provide all families with the therapies, and the occasional therapies that we do provide are only available for rich families. Just to give you an idea, here are some figures. The cost for families that go out of their way to provide the very basic therapies is 2,450 euros per year. For children with autism, the cost is up to 30,000 euros per year. A 20-day therapy for 4 hours a day costs 2,800 euros. Parents thus contribute about 51 million euros per year from their own resources to private companies for the therapies. At the moment, poor families have to set up civil associations for their children to receive 2% of tax contributions and donations in order to pay for the therapies for their children. Without the state help, the families are forced to beg for money. So yes, I'm very, very happy that the Commission has adopted a strategy for the rights of persons with disabilities 2021 and 2030. It has ambitious objectives with early intervention as one of the important ones. But at the moment, these objectives are just words. So what do we do if we really want to help? How can we help the children with disabilities, the children living in poverty, and the children from Roma communities? First, most important thing, we have to stop saying there is not enough money in our system. Maybe the reason there is not enough money in the systems is the lack of early intervention services. Look at the studies. Today's investment is tomorrow's savings. Second, we need to make it less complicated for the governments to implement conventions and recommendations. You know, there are excellent examples among EU member states, Denmark, Netherlands, Greece, even UK. They support and educate the parents, they assess the children, create individual education programs, they integrate the children into the mainstream. And these are programs that can become templates, easy to communicate and very easy to emulate. Third, we need many more experts, and we need them out in the countryside, in the places where they can make biggest difference. I believe with the enormous funding from the EU, we can make a difference in lives of children with disabilities and in lives of socially deprived children. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, dear MEP. Thank you for your encouraging words, but also thank you for putting this discussion in a wider context. Indeed, we have now the new European Union Disability Rights Strategy, and early childhood intervention is an essential part of it because it is so effective and because it is so important. And indeed, the new ESF Plus funds and the Recovery Resilient Fund could be used to further develop these type of support systems. Thank you very, very much. With great pleasure, I now hand over to the Deputy Minister of Family Affairs of Hungary, Mr. Attila Benneda. Dear Deputy Minister, you have the floor.
I think he hasn't joined yet, so maybe we can go.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Then we immediately move on to the representative of the Felix Foundation, Mr. Max Madsen. Max, just between us, there are only 700 people listening. In my wildest dream, I never would have expected such a great outcome of this project. What is your opinion? Max, you have the floor. You're muted, Max. You're still muted, yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, I was so lucky to meet most of the participants in Slovakia, in Bratislava, and there I was convinced that here we have a group of very dedicated professionals, so we are not so surprised that you reach the goals you have set. At that occasion, I also had the pleasure to say a few words about the Velux Foundations. And for those who don't know about the foundation, it's a foundation or foundations, contains of two foundations, Velum Foundation and Velux Foundations, which are supporting different kind of environmental, social, and cultural projects. Last year, about 142 million euros. And this project is one of the projects we have the honor to be able to support. I'm looking forward this afternoon to hear about the final results for this project. And we'd like to wish you good luck in the future, also for further support from others who can take over. And as said, we are very proud to be part of this. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your very encouraging words, Mr. Madsen, and thank you for your support throughout the project. Again, dear colleagues, dear participants, without the significant financial support of the Velux Foundation, this would not have been possible. Thank you again, Max. I saw in the chat box that some people are struggling with the interpretation. The ESPD team has put some additional guidance on how to make sure that you can have interpretation. Please feel free to check that in the chat box. You should activate interpretation and then select your language. But of course, a bit depending on the version of Zoom and the platform through which you join us, that can be slightly different from system to system. But interpretation is available, and it is important that you can participate and join this event following in your own mother tongue. I would like to check now whether the Deputy Minister of the Hungarian Family Affairs Ministry is with us. Mr. Benada, are you with us?
Not yet.
Not yet.
But there are some questions in the Q&A. Okay.
Yeah, then we will come back to that later on. So, dear colleagues, again, welcome at this event. In political terms, it is the right moment to have this discussion because, as said by the MEP, we have indeed the new disability rights strategy, in which early childhood intervention is an important element. We have the work that is done on the implementation of the social pillar. We have the child guarantee discussion that is going on. We have many different policy initiatives that were launched here at the European Union level. And also at the grassroots level, we see that more and more services and local authorities start to express an interest in learning more about early childhood intervention. In a few months from now, we will start working also with other and different member states to implement ECI. So the moment is right, and it's good to have you with us today. Let's move into our first panel, which will be moderated by our good colleague and friend, Vladislav Matei. Vladislav, you have the floor. Please take over.
Some reason, apparently, he's also not present. I will call him.
Okay,
Monica, can
if you do this type of events,
yes. Monica,
So
can
many
you?
countries and
Yes.
so many participants. Things might go wrong. Is Matej available? Otherwise,
But
I will
Monica can
first
start.
start.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello, Monica.
My name is Monica. I'm from Slovakia, from National Association of Service Providers and Supporters of ECI, and I'm Vlado's colleague. I can take over until Vlado is back.
Perfect.
We would like to share with the audience what we reached during the Agora project, which started in 2018 and lasted until this year. We had 5 countries included, and each national partner was responsible for a certain part of the project. The partner countries were Bulgaria, Hungary, Poland, Romania, and Slovakia. Our tutors in ECI were professionals from early aid, and we thank you, Espd and Velux, for possibility to move over in the area of ECI through these 3 years. Now, we would like to introduce the partner organizations first, so that if it's possible, I would like to invite our first, maybe I will mention something about Slovak partner in the Agora project, and I share the screen. The Slovak partner of the Agora project was National Association of Service Supporters and Providers of ECI. It's an umbrella organization joining 28 service providers of ECI and 17 ECI supporters. In Slovakia, there are providers in different sectors, and in social sector, there are 37 providers in total. The goals of the association are to contribute to high quality and accessibility of early intervention, to develop competencies of professionals by organizing the educations, and to support long-term sustainability of ECI services. Association provides consultations and methodology support to the providers, and is running 170-hour training for ECI and trainings on particular topics related to ECI. People from association also represent the providers in the negotiations with the ministries. And in this way, Slovak National Association is already the Agora Center for ECI in Slovakia. So I can see Vlado now. I offer the floor to you, Vlado. I have just said several words about association.
I'm terribly sorry for complications. But thank you very much, Monica, for your substitution. It was excellent that you were so flexible. Thank you for introducing the National Association from Slovakia. But I'd like to also introduce my colleagues. First of all, Monica was already presented the National Association. I'd like to also welcome our colleagues from Hungary. I can't see them actually, but they will be there. There are 2 Judiths from Hungary, and then my colleague and good friend from Malgorzata, Margaret from Poland, and last not least, Nevena from Bulgaria. So this will be our panel, and we like to be focused on how what's the reality of professionals working in ECI and family-centered ECI in our countries. I I will share the screen and I will very briefly introduce the what's the outputs of the project we have done in 5 countries. So the first of all, I'd like to explain Agora. What's the word? Agora is the originally Greek word for marketplace or assembly point or public space. So our aim was to create such a place for early childhood intervention. And we have been, we have been a whole group of organization. The 2 of them was European Association, Espd and Early and 5 partners, mostly umbrella NGO organization from 5 countries. The project was divided on, we call it work packages. And what was very logical that the first phase was mapping. So we have been mapping in all other countries by DEX researches, qualitative analysis, questionnaires for target group. What's the situation of ECI in our country? And that's why we published summary report. The main findings, the main recommendation was that where that's consistent cross-sectoral regulatory framework and policies is needed. And then the quality standards for ECI is also very important. And capacity building of ECI specialists, what was also mentioned, but on the introduction of MMP of European Parliament is very important. Then we make a toolbox. You can see Agora ECI.eu website, and all information what they have been gathering are available on this website. We call it as a toolbox for ECI specialists. Then training and piloting for our countries was done. Trainers were trained in Bratislava. You can see the pictures of all participants. And then implementation of long-term training and support in selected pilot ECI providers have been accomplished. And after 1 year evaluation and what was done, Monica will speak a little bit more about this issue. Then roadmap and roadshow awareness and awareness campaign was done in every country. Dissemination is very important. We have created materials, publication, rich knowledge, and tools. You can see the examples of 3 publications we have published, as well as the video about ECI, what have been watching on the beginning of our webinar. It will be also shown on in the end. So on the final part or final phase of the project was preparation of final international conference, what we are now. So I'd like to welcome here and say to everyone that it's very nice to be here. Now I like to also pass the floor for my colleagues and Judith from Hungary will continue. So please, the floor is yours. What's your organization? Please introduce a little bit.
Welcome to every participation on this closing conference of the Agora project. I am Dr. Judith Schultes, Medical Director of the Gezengus Foundation. Hereby, I invite Judith Szalai to take our presentation.
Welcome to the audience. So the Gezengus Foundation was founded in 1990 by Dr. Judith Schultes. Since then, the foundation has become one of the biggest non-profit civil organizations of Hungary in this field. On the basis of our system-based model, we receive children and their families in 5 centers and 2 departments connected to premature birth care in Hungary. The Gezengus Foundation is providing a family-focused early childhood intervention for prematures, for children with nervous system injuries, and for those with altered development or developmental risks. Our objective is to provide holistic interventional activity in natural living space, including early diagnostics, integrated care, follow-up, and prevention. Our target group is children between age 0 to 7, especially children from 0 to 3 years. We are working in collaboration with healthcare, public education, and other service providers. And this is the current model of early childhood intervention in Hungary, showing the possible pathways of families. As you can see on the slide, our foundation is a significant part of the system. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judith, for introduction on Gezengus Foundation. We saw that it was a grassroots organization, but it's now very spread throughout the whole Hungary, and you have 6 centers. So it's excellent how you are covering the needs of people, the families with children. So then I'd like to ask also Margaret from Poland to introduce Ezra.
Vlado, dziękuję bardzo za głos i serdecznie witam wszystkich uczestników dzisiejszej konferencji z Warszawy. Małgorzata Dońska-Olszko, koordynator projektu Agora, ale będę dzisiaj mówić o rezultatach tego projektu w imieniu całego zespołu, który brał udział w projekcie. W Polsce niestety nie mamy organizacji takiej na poziomie krajowym, która by była statutowo dedykowana wczesnej interwencji. Mamy bardzo dużo organizacji pozarządowych, które realizują zadania i wiele instytucji też publicznych, natomiast organizacji zajmujących się wczesną interwencją, czy tak jak u nas też mówimy, wczesnym wspomaganiem rozwoju, zgodnie z legislacją w edukacji, w systemie edukacji. Dlatego też, jako zresztą doskonały partner, w projekcie Agora znalazła się ze strony polskiej spółka Ezra UKSW, założona przy Uniwersytecie Kardynała Stefana Wyszyńskiego w Warszawie. Spółka młoda, licząca sobie 3 lata, tak jak nasz projekt Agora, ale spółka powołana właśnie specjalnie do realizacji takich projektów nowatorskich, innowacyjnych w obszarze społecznym. Głównym projektem poza Agorą, realizowanym przez Ezra UKSW, jest projekt opracowania i uruchomienia centrów wsparcia psychicznego dla dzieci i młodzieży, właśnie, no i również rodzin, w takim modelu budowania sieci wsparcia społecznego lokalnie, zamiast umieszczania dzieci czy młodzieży w jakichś instytucjach zdrowotnych, tak, podlegających resortowi zdrowia, bo najczęściej tak się dzieje. Trzeba powiedzieć, że ta młoda spółka to jest zespół pasjonatów prowadzony przez wizjonera, doktora Tomasza Rowińskiego, który jest prezesem zarządu i który niewątpliwie jest właśnie takim człowiekiem z wizją zmian, takich właśnie rozwiązań, wsparcia rodzin, które znajdują się w kryzysie, w modelu spójnym w pełni z modelem Agory, czyli wsparcia nie samego dziecka, całej rodziny i nie poprzez umieszczanie dziecka z jakimikolwiek zaburzeniami rozwojowymi, czy też jakimikolwiek zaburzeniami zdrowia psychicznego, nie umieszczania w instytucjach, ale właśnie włączenia edukacyjnego, społecznego. Także spółka Ezra była najlepszym możliwym wyborem jako partner w projekcie dla innych kolegów, partnerów naszych międzynarodowych. Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you very much, Małgorzata. We also prepared some presentations, and if you would like to present it.
My presentation wasn't visible, Vlado, sorry.
But you mentioned it in your presentation on beginning of Ezra presentation. So, but we have also presentation for other questions what we will share with you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Nevena, Bulgaria. So please introduce NASO. What's the NASO means? What NASO do?
I thank you, Vlado. Welcome to everyone. My name is Nevena Dobreva. I'm an expert in international partnerships and projects in the National Alliance for Social Responsibility. We are based here in Bulgaria, and we are recognized as a national umbrella organization since 2011. Actually, our mission is to unite, motivate, and support businesses, nonprofit organizations, and also municipal and regional structures in their efforts and capacity for implementing social engagement and social responsibility policies and activities. Besides our two main offices in Varna and the capital city, Sofia, we maintain 26 representations across the country. Through them, we can provide direct support, transfer of knowledge, and expertise to social service providers in every corner of Bulgaria. Actually, our main, so to say, key word or motto is partnerships. So we also try to build bridges and partnerships with the national authorities, municipalities, and also nonprofit organizations and social service providers, and also with the end users, mainly people with disabilities, and also other disadvantaged groups in our society. So we are a member of Espd, and through this we can build bridges between the European policies and best practices from other countries and connect them to our Bulgarian reality in order to transfer knowledge, innovations, and new approaches. It was a great pleasure for us to be part of the Agora project and to put the focus on our youngest members of the Bulgarian society. So thank you. Vlado?
Thank you everyone for introduction. It was very short introduction of all involved partners, just very short comments that we have also a partner from Romania, but during the implementation of the project, they decided to stop some activities due to the lack of capacity, but they continue in some other activities with us. So that's why Romania is not presenting the outputs here. Okay, so on the second round, we'd like to speak. There's someone switch on the microphone, so please could you mute it? No, there's interfering voices. I'm sorry, this.
You're muted, Vlado. You're muted.
But I've been also listening some other voices behind me, so sorry.
But that is over now, I hope. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So in the second round of our discussion among this participants group, participating organization group with the project, I'd like to ask you, all of you, how would you describe the impact of Agora project in your countries, or simply what we have learned? So Monica, again, thank you. And please, your presentation from Slovakia. What we have learned? And,
thank you,
okay.
Vlado, for giving me a word. I will switch to Slovak. Takže počas projektu Agora sa na Slovensku potvrdilo to, že včasná intervencia poskytovaná pre rodinu a v prirodzenom prostredí rodiny je efektívny spôsob poskytovania včasnej intervencie, ktorý je vedecky podložený. Mali sme možnosť teda zmapovať situáciu na Slovensku v rezortoch školstva, zdravotníctva a sociálnych vecí A v roku 2019 sme na Slovensku zavzdelávali 95 odborníkov aspoň na základné rámce v oblasti včasnej intervencie zameranej na rodinu. A počas projektu bolo pilotovaná táto prax na rodinu zameranej včasnej intervencie u troch poskytovateľov na Slovensku, v Hnušti, Trenčíne a v Košiciach. A veľmi dôležitou súčasťou, teda prínosom projektu bolo, že do slovenčiny bola preložená príručka pre odborníkov odporúčané postupy včasnej intervencie. Teraz by som chcela povedať niečo viac o tom, ako bolo vyhodnotené pilotovanie na rodinu zameranej včasnej intervencie v všetkých 4 krajinách, ktoré sa do implementácie zapojili. Bolo zapojených spolu 15 poskytovateľov a to, ako sa im darilo postúpiť smerom k na rodinu orientovanej včasnej intervencii, sme mapovali cez škálu FINES 2 od pána McWilliama. Vidíte na obrazovke graf, ktorý zobrazuje na začiatku stav poskytovania pred pilotovaním a potom stav, kam sa poskytovatelia posunuli. Na 7-bodovej škále to predstavuje v priemere 1,3 bodový posun. A aby sme nehovorili o číslach, ale konkrétne o veciach, oblastiach, kde poskytovatelia zmenili svoju prax, tak musíme povedať, že asi najväčším posunom v tom, ako sa poskytovala včasná intervencia, bolo, že sa prešlo z poskytovania podpory v ambulantnom prostredí do prirodzeného prostredia rodiny, že poskytovatelia navštevovali rodiny v domácom prostredí a napriek začiatočným obavám potvrdili potom v country reportoch veľmi pozitívne skúsenosti s tým, že sa prehlbila dôvera medzi odborníkmi a rodičmi. Veľmi pozitívne oceňovali ako keby lepšie spoznanie rodín a vedomosť o tom, že aké sú ich podmienky, že aké sú obľúbené činnosti dieťaťa, ako vstupujú do interakcie s dieťaťom ostatní členovia rodiny. A najviac v tej škále, ktorú sme sledovali, sa zlepšil ukazovateľ, ktorý hovorí o agende domácich návštev. A bolo veľmi dôležité, že poskytovatelia sa posunuli v tom, že rozhodovanie o tom, čo sa bude diať, v akej oblasti bude poskytovaná intervencia, bolo výsledkom dohody medzi odborníkom a rodičom. Rodič mal právo pomenovať priority. Druhým najväčším posunom poskytovatelia pomenovali prax domácich návštev, a to tak, že už poskytovatelia nerobili terapie v domácom prostredí, ale sa snažili ukázať a naučiť rodičov, ako s dieťaťom pracovať, ako ho rozvíjať aj v čase, keď ten odborník s nimi nie je. Napríklad, že povedali, ako nehať dieťa pomenovať kocku, keď si ju pýta, ako tam je pri hre s rodičom napríklad, alebo ako motorickú podporiť tým, že mu tú kocku ukáže alebo nechá o trochu ďalej, aby dieťa samo sa posunulo. A tretím najväčším posunom v tej praxi bolo to, že sa ako keby zadefinovali zdroje podpory pre rodinu. A to tak, že poskytovateľe, vždy poradcovia v rodine štruktúrovaným rozhovorom zmapovali všetky podporné zdroje, ktoré rodina má a pomohli tak rodine sa ako keby cítiť bezpečnejšie v rôznych oblastiach, napríklad v komunite alebo v takých veciach, ktoré si ani neuvedomovali, že predtým môžu využívať. Poskytovanie na rodinu zamerané včasnej intervencie bolo pozitívne hodnotené aj rodičmi. Do implementácie bolo zapojených 380 rodín, z čoho 187 hodnotilo a používali sme škálu od Dunsta a Triveta a sme sa pýtali na 17 rôznych oblastí rodičov, že do akej miery sa diali u nich a sledovali sme intenzitu výskytu vždy, teda keď odpovedali vždy. Na začiatku to bolo v 63% a na konci v 79%. vidno na grafe, ako sa priemerne posunula tá celá skupina a že najväčší posun v očiach rodičov teda zaznamenalo Poľsko a poľské pilotné organizácie. A ako príklad jednej z tých otázok, tuto vidíte také príklady toho, čo sme sa presne sledovali. A rodičia teda najväčší posun videli v tom, že ten poradca pracuje so mnou a s mojou rodinou flexibilne a rešpektuje moje potreby. Tak to je asi za nás v oblasti tom, kam sme sa v Agore posunuli. Ďakujem.
Thank you very much, Monica. It was very interesting to see that it wasn't just some natural actions. It was evidence-based as well, and the grassroots organization can do it very professionally. So what we have learned and what you have learned in Hungary? Yes, Judita, please share your experiences.
Thank you, Vlado. So first, Agora gave us a good chance to thinking and co-creating together with the project partners in an international level. Then we had an opportunity to use two important tools, the routine-based interview and the ECOMAP. And also we recognized the need for a new way of communication. So we had new recognitions during the process of the project as RBI and ECOMAP. Using RBI questionnaires, families get a widespread perspective in handling of their child's development. Drawing their own social network helped to confirm families' decision-making process and competence. Coaching approach appears as a new demand in interaction of all ECI participants. And as a result of Agora, the health gain and the mental health benefits turned up in families and in national level as well. The pandemic situation emphasized and confirmed the results and message of Agora project, partly in maintaining relationship in online method, partly in the need of ECI professionals reorganization. This double effect have an influence on changing of ECI sectors. The extension of social support become a primary need in intersectoral service progress. So thank you.
Thank you, Judith, for your presentation. We have seen that it was you used in Hungary very practical tools. What you have learned during the project, you mentioned RBI. Probably I will translate it. It's a routine-based interview done by Mr. McWilliam. So and ECOMAP. So it's the tools what is very helpful for providers for better engaging of the parents into the coaching or into the providing the service by ECI. Okay, so it was Hungary, and we have heard from Monica that Poland was most successful as far as the moving in the measuring and measuring by families, how the ECI providers was measured by families. So I'm looking forward to hear news from Poland. Małgorzata.
Thank you, Vlado. Is my presentation visible?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Okay, so you...
Why is so? And right now?
Not yet. You have to have open it in your computers. And then go to the share screen.
Share screen, okay, sorry.
And then share.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah, now I see.
Then we are here, so excellent. Thank you.
Thank you for your help, Vlado. Jeśli chodzi o Polskę, to myślę, że w całym zespole osób, które pracowały na rzecz projektu Agora, ale też nie tylko samej Agory, będę o tym mówić, to że ten projekt miał ogromny wpływ na zmiany, jakie zachodzą w naszym kraju. I tak myśląc pokrótce nad tą prezentacją, to ułożyły mi się takie punkty, które Państwo widzicie, że to był właściwy czas, ten właśnie moment, że ten projekt jakby wpisał się w taki sprzyjający moment zmian i różnych decyzji podejmowanych w naszym kraju, że to był właściwy partner, właśnie ten partner, którego misją jest realizacja zmian w takim kierunku inkluzji na wielu poziomach, że cały projekt jakby w sensie zawartości tego projektu, ale też modelu kierowania tym projektem, takiego liderowania projektowi, zarządzania nim, wreszcie budżetu, że te wszystkie elementy były bardzo sprzyjające i że to były elementy, które z jednej strony wypływały właśnie z jakichś uwarunkowań w Polsce, w naszym kraju, a z drugiej strony właśnie z tego, jak ten projekt Agora przebiegał i chciałabym o tym bliżej powiedzieć, więc jeśli chodzi o nasze uwarunkowania krajowe, to niemalże w tym samym czasie, kiedy Polska, że tak powiem, stała się partnerem w projekcie Agora, kiedy on się rozpoczął, to jednocześnie Ministerstwo Edukacji i Nauki w Polsce rozpoczęło takie myślenie o zmianach i doskonaleniu naszego systemu edukacji całego w kierunku inkluzji. Powołało duży zespół ekspertów, który pracował ponad rok tak konsultacyjnie nad założeniami istotnymi do tych zmian, które właśnie miały dotyczyć lepszego wsparcia dla wszystkich dzieci ze specjalnymi potrzebami edukacyjnymi w systemie edukacji. Ministerstwo Edukacji również wystąpiło do Komisji Europejskiej o wsparcie reform strukturalnych, takich w kierunku inkluzji i takiej polityki, że tak powiem, polityki naszej edukacyjnej zgodnej z kierunkami promowanymi przez Unię Europejską i realizowanymi w innych krajach. To wszystko doprowadziło nas, a przede wszystkim Ministerstwo Edukacji i Nauki, do zorganizowania konferencji jesienią 2020 roku, poprzedniego roku, konferencji związanej z budowaniem koalicji międzysektorowej, co było wydarzeniem z mojego punktu widzenia wieloletniego już profesjonalisty wyjątkowym, że dzięki temu dobremu gruntowi, jaki mieliśmy w okresie realizacji Agory, jaki mieliśmy w kraju, to chyba po raz pierwszy zaczęły się poważne rozmowy na szczeblu decydentów, takie międzyministerialne i ta konferencja jakby pokazała, że faktycznie jest jakaś gotowość, żeby myśleć o wsparciu systemowym dziecka i rodziny, dziecka ze specjalnymi potrzebami i jego rodziny w takim właśnie międzysektorowym ujęciu, czyli zarówno edukacja, jak i zdrowie, jak i Ministerstwo Pracy, Polityki Społecznej i Rodziny. I cały poprzedni rok też toczą się prace nad nowym aktem legislacyjnym, który właśnie zakłada tą większą inkluzję w całym systemie edukacji, zaczynając od małego dziecka i kończąc na tejże obowiązkowej edukacji, jaka u nas obowiązuje. To na ten grunt trafił projekt Agora i ten projekt Agora w naszym poczuciu jakby w pełni wyszedł naprzeciw naszym potrzebom. On był też tak skonstruowany, że projekt niczego nie narzucał. Te fazy projektu prowadziły nas krok po kroku i pozwalały nam, że tak powiem, wchodzić w głębiej w filozofię właśnie tego kierunku skoncentrowanego na całej rodzinie i na budowaniu lokalnych sieci wsparcia. Wszystkie dokumenty, które wypracowaliśmy w trakcie trwania projektu mamy poczucie wszyscy, że były niezwykle potrzebne i użyteczne, szeroko dostępne. Oczywiście najważniejszym albo jednym z ważniejszych było tłumaczenie książki wydanej przez ECEC, przewodnika dla specjalistów, który był, myślę, swego rodzaju drogowskazem dla wielu specjalistów już, ale też dla zespołu ekspertów pracujących wyłącznie nad samym już modelem wczesnej interwencji i standardów tej wczesnej interwencji. Także to wszystko, ten zbieg okoliczności i sposób właśnie, w jaki ten projekt przebiegał, stale wspierał nasze myślenie o zmianach i regulacjach w kierunku włączenia, dla którego fundamentem właśnie jest ten etap wczesnej interwencji, czyli opieki nad rodziną z małym dzieckiem do momentu pójścia do szkoły. Chciałam też podkreślić wartości samego projektu Agora, które docenialiśmy niezwykle, taką elastyczność, wsłuchiwanie się w nasz głos, uważność, oddanie w nasze ręce w jakiejś mierze realizacji tego projektu razem z odpowiedzialnością, tak żeby każdy kraj mógł wyciągnąć najwięcej z tego projektu, co jakby było różne w różnych krajach. Wszystkie partnerskie organizacje, tu już była mowa, że były niezwykle zaangażowane i nasze formalne i nieformalne spotkania, które w jakiejś mierze przerwała pandemia jednak, bo ten czas już na naszych webinariach był krótszy, były niezwykle wzbogacające i bardzo elastyczny budżet tego projektu, który też nam pozwalał podążać za tym, co jakby w całym zespole w bardzo demokratyczny sposób uznawaliśmy za wiodące i ważne dla każdego z krajów. I myślę, że też dzięki temu korzyści, które wyciągnęliśmy, a przynajmniej z punktu widzenia Polski, są znaczące, a więc nie tylko te uwarunkowania nasze w Polsce, ale właśnie jakby sposób realizacji samego projektu z ukłonami dla wszystkich partnerów, Tima jako lidera naszego projektu i Early Ed, który był takim naszym mentorem, troszkę podpowiadającym kierunki najnowszych badań, praktyki. I wreszcie wracając na chwilkę już do tego, dlaczego wspomniałam o naszej gotowości w kraju, ale ogromna otwartość wszystkich moich kolegów, poza kolegami z organizacji pilotażowych, którzy, że tak powiem, w pełni utożsamili się, widząc rezultaty w pracy z rodziną podczas pilotażu i są już dziś gotowi, a nawet już szkolą i przekazują wiedzę, jaką otrzymaliśmy w ramach projektu Agora, w takiej skali ogólnopolskiej poprzez webinaria, to też wielka otwartość wszystkich osób zaangażowanych w reformy w Polsce, zarówno decydentów Ministerstwa Edukacji i Nauki, jak i wszystkich moich kolegów, z którymi pracowałam w zespole ekspertów, tym szerszym i tym skupionym wyłącznie na wczesnej interwencji. Ta otwartość i gotowość do korzystania z rezultatów, do dopytywania właśnie o materiały, o narzędzia, z jakich korzystaliśmy, o rekomendacje, to wszystko spowodowało, że na bieżąco jakby chłonęliśmy rezultaty i rekomendacje wynikające z projektu Agora. Bardzo dziękuję.
Margaret, you were so enthusiastic about the project in Agora that I can't stop you somehow, but okay, it was very fruitful and important to listen how it's what's situation in Poland and how it's also the political will for very important changes. So, but I will pass the floor for Nevena from Bulgaria. So what do you have learned during the Agora in your country?
Thank you, Vado. So you can hear me, right? Yes, okay. So this was a great project for us. We were very delightful to be a partner in it and to research this very important topic of early childhood intervention. Actually, within the project, the National Alliance for Social Responsibility had the leading role in creating a national support network in the field of ECI. Actually, we have a twofold mission in this project. On the one hand, to spread the idea of ECI in Bulgaria, because it is a relatively new topic in our country. So even the family-oriented approach is a new approach, an introduction to more systemic method of working not only with the child but with the whole family, the parents and extended family. So our other part within the project was to unite professionals, ministries, and municipalities in order to improve our activities, but also introduce new ones in the area of early childhood intervention. Within the project, we had the chance to conduct training sessions with 10 pilot organizations in Bulgaria, which led to an increase in their capacity, exchange of experience, and also introduction of European best practices, and the creation of a common vision for early childhood intervention among institutions and professionals in the field. So the project was very beneficial for Bulgaria in many ways. We focused on ECI in the field of people with disabilities, but we also managed to change the views of key stakeholders on a national level. We built a consensus that a family-oriented approach should be our guiding principle when we deliver early childhood intervention services. In this regard, we are very thankful that we have the chance to translate into Bulgarian and print this guidebook, Recommended Practices in Early Childhood Intervention, a guidebook for professionals. And the next step is to distribute it among our professionals across the whole country. So through the project, we have taken the first steps in the direction of forming the legal framework for ECI in Bulgaria. We believe that 3 key ministries must be involved in the delivery of early childhood intervention services. These are the Ministry of Labor and Social Policy, the Ministry of Health, and also the Ministry of Education and Science. In this process, of course, the Ministry of Labor and Social Policy should assume the leading role, and at the same time, the non-governmental sector and municipalities should be the main driving force and corrective of the new legal framework for ECI in Bulgaria. In the final part of the project, we had the chance to organize a series of meetings with local and national authorities in 3 of the largest Bulgarian cities. So we reached the following conclusion, that it is necessary to guarantee financial, material, and especially human resources for ECI services. This includes also the availability of experienced staff and opportunities for their retention and career development through training and supervision. As we mentioned in the beginning, it's not only about services and families and child, it's also about funding. Because we need funds not only to modernize our material infrastructures or social service providers, we need funding for career development and getting more expertise for our professionals. So we believe that this funding should be provided mainly by the state budget, but also municipalities can be a resource of financial flows to the ECI services. Anyway, our professionals have already experienced in managing and coordinating projects. So project-based funding is also an option for future improvement of the ECI services in Bulgaria. So thank you, Vlado.
Thank you very much, Nevena. It was interesting to listen that also in Bulgaria there is quite a big will to have some changes. But the ultimate goal of our joint effort was to create, let's say, national agoras, the public spaces focal point for early child intervention. So in the last round, I'd like to ask my panelists, what's your plans after the project will end? What's your duties would like to achieve? And I like to ask you, you have around 2 minutes per partners to be on time for next panel. So Monica, what's the plans in Slovakia?
Ďakujem za slovo, Vlado. Tak za Slovensko môžeme potvrdiť, že Asociácia poskytovateľov a podporovateľov včasnej intervencie chce zotrvať v pozícii Agory na Slovensku a chce presadzovať model na rodinnej založenej včasnej intervencie a jeho komplexnosť naďalej. Veľmi teda akože pozitívne vnímame, že v programu vyhlásení vlády je aj záväzok zaviesť takýto koordinovaný nadrezortný systém včasnej intervencie a je kvôli tomu zriadená medzirezortná pracovná skupina, ktorá má teda definovať jasné kroky k tomu, ako to bude v budúcnosti realizované. Čo je ale stále u nás zostáva výzvou, že na Slovensku je treba myslieť na to, že dostupnosť podpory v rannom veku pre deti so zdravotným znevýhodnením je stále veľmi nízka a podpora pre rodiny s deťmi zo sociálneho znevýhodnenia prostredia zatiaľ nemá ani oporu v legislatíve. A jedna vec je teda dostupnosť, ktorú potrebujeme regionálnu, aby všetky deti vo všetkých regiónoch a ich rodiny mali podporu a potrebujeme ju, čo sa týka intenzity služieb a potrebujeme ju aj čo do komplexnosti služieb, aby sme mali podporu tých odborníkov, ktorých naše rodiny potrebujú. To, čo je teda ale za tým, potrebujeme komplexný systém podpory, ktorý bude založený na tých princípoch, ktoré fungujú a sú dokázané, ako napríklad tento na rodinu orientovaný prístup vo včasnej intervencii. A je dôležité, aby sa všetky podporné inštitúcie riadili rovnakými princípmi a aby bola zabezpečená kontinuálna podpora detí v riziku od zistenia rizika cez tranzit do nejakej podpornej prevádzajúcej služby, ktorá bude komplexná, až po tranzíciu do školského nejakého prostredia. Je dôležité si tu vyjasniť kompetencia, financovanie a teda z nášho hľadiska je dôležitá politická vôľa. A teraz chcem ako rodič dieťaťa so zdravotným znevýhodnením potvrdiť to, že ako je podnadpis tejto konferencie, že podpora v začiatku môže zmeniť celý príbeh rodiny. A tak ako my sme mali pozitívnu skúsenosť na Slovensku, je teda veľmi veľa rodín, ktoré nám aj na základe podnetov z platformy rodín hovorí, že ich príbeh nie je ideálny, že stále pretrváva u nás segregácia a nedostupnosť služieb. A preto vyzývam a pozývam všetkých kompetentných, aby teda prebrali zodpovednosť za príbehy tisícov rodín a venovali energiu na dohodu o zjednotení systému a investovali peniaze do včasnej intervencie, ktorá bude dostupná pre všetkých, ktorí to potrebujú. A teraz aj ako daňová poplatníčka sa obraciam na kompetentných, aby prebrali zodpovednosť za rozpočet štátu, keď oni tým, že neinvestujú do včasnej intervencie, vlastne v neskorších obdobiach to stojí štátny rozpočet niekoľkonásobne viac peňazí. Teda pozývam všetkých kompetentných, aby boli zodpovední voči daňovým poplatníkom a svojim voličom. A teda obzvlášť teraz napríklad na Slovensku sa deje reforma poradenského systému, ktorá potrebuje veľmi silnú koordináciu so všetkými ostatnými rezortmi, tak verím, že sa v krátkej dobe dostaneme k nejakým výsledkom. Samozrejme, okrem toho jednotného systému a dostupnosti u nás je dôležité, že treba ďalej vzdelávať odborníkov v nových prístupoch a je dôležité zaviesť alebo nejako aplikovať kampaň na porozumenie tým novým prístupom, ktoré by sme zaviedli a zorganizovať samozrejme tu celý systém na národnej, regionálnej a aj lokálnej úrovni. Tak toľko výzvy za Slovensko. Ďakujem za slovo.
Okay, Monica. I think it was also wise for other countries because Monica, as she mentioned, she's a parent of a disabled child, so the strong voice for changes is required. What's your plans in Hungary, Judith, for next period? And we have a very limited time. I'm very sorry, but we have around 1 minute per partner. So.
Okay, I will be quickly. Okay, thank you, Vlado. So, yeah, I share the screen. Okay, so we would like to continue our dissemination activities in the future. The guidebook will be available on our website in Hungarian. Also, we would like to create coaching-oriented workshops curriculum as an Agora result, and sharing the main aspects of national cooperation, and disseminating our Agora experiences to ECI partners in our innovation training courses. One of our innovations is the HUPLA program. The HUPLA medical device was invented by Dr. Judith Schultes. Our other innovation is the neurohydrotherapy developed by Dr. Judith Schultes and the team of Ecec Foundation. And happily, by this time, the Agora dissemination is included in both of our accredited training program. So thank you for your attention.
And what's planned in Poland, Gosia?
Vlado, I am almost ready. I'm almost ready with plans. I know that we are a little bit in a hurry. Is my presentation visible?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. So what is the future? With my all enthusiasm, I believe that new legislation, it's comeback, Polish language today. Z całym moim entuzjazmem jestem przekonana, że nowa legislacja zostanie przyjęta przez Parlament jeszcze w tym roku, a w przyszłym roku od września, 1 września, tak jak zaczyna się rok szkolny, jako że Ministerstwo Edukacji jest wiodące, będziemy wdrażać nowe rozwiązania z uwzględnieniem rezultatów projektu Agora, że to jest proces, że przed nami daleka droga, ale myślę, że udało nam się przekonać wiele osób i decyzyjnych, i rodziców, i specjalistów, szeroko konsultując różne zmiany, że to jest kierunek słuszny i że to jest fundament, że taki model wczesnej interwencji, jaki realizowaliśmy w naszym projekcie Agora, to jest fundament inkluzji i że jeżeli chcemy budować bardziej inkluzywny system, to musimy, że tak powiem, ten proces rozpocząć, doskonalić, monitorować i jestem pełna wiary, że ten kwiatek zasadzony dzięki projektowi Agora, który dzisiaj tak jeszcze ma te pączki zwinięte, że on będzie rozkwitał w kolejnych latach i że już z tej drogi już nie zejdziemy. Więc chcę na koniec ogromnie podziękować wszystkim kolegom międzynarodowym, ale też tu krajowym za to, co nam się udało wypracować. Ogromne podziękowania dla Fundacji Velux, w moim własnym imieniu, za mój rozwój zawodowy, ale też i kolegów, którzy brali udział w szkoleniach i w pilotażu. I wreszcie chcę też powiedzieć, że mam takie poczucie, że zgodnie z tytułem naszej konferencji, że zmieniliśmy początek historii, ale żeby zmieniać historię dalej, całą historię, to że bardzo, bardzo będzie nam potrzebne wsparcie w doskonaleniu kadr, w tych ekspertach, o których była mowa, że ich nam brakuje. I w szeroko zakrojonej współpracy, bo do zmiany systemowej potrzebna jest współpraca. Także bardzo dziękuję Espd, Earlyedowi, Fundacji Velux, że Polska mogła znaleźć się w tym projekcie.
Thank you, Małgorzata. You done good job also for opening doors for the future, also probably for some donors. But Nevena, what's your plans in Bulgaria?
Oh, thank you, Vlado. I see that I don't have a lot of time, so I will be brief. We have a lot of things to do in the next days, weeks, months. So we will continue to distribute ECI as a product in the country among professionals, municipalities, and also families. We know that the government must ensure sustainable funding for ECI services. So I hope that through partnerships, we'll be able to insist on this because it's important. The next step is to be provided a regulatory framework for the ECI system. And in doing so, we need to, of course, introduce and use a universal screening test for child development assessment, because right now it's not on a used on a large scale. So it's important step. And also to enter all children receiving ECI services in a single national register. In that way, we can monitor, improve, and really assess our future regulatory framework for the ECI system. And of course, we will continue searching for evidence-based best practices for developing and implementing our national ECI services system. So these are our plans for the next weeks and months, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you, Nevena, and thank you all of you. I think it was, for me, it was at least a very important, interesting panel. Thank you for national partners in this project. We became a good team, and I working with team. So that was our last pause in our panel, and I would like to pass the word to Anna Serrano and to other panelists in the third panel, and I suppose they could have caused such a massive participation at our conference. I mean, another panelist what will follow. So Anna, floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. I think I have the to Homero means general meeting of people, a space for citizenship, because the project intends to raise awareness and unlock the benefits of early years and early intervention as a key aspect for creating healthier, sustainable, and inclusive societies. So the three keynotes we purposefully choose to be with us today have earned and have internationally been acknowledged for their work, not only as scientists and practitioners in the area of early development, brain neurodevelopment, trauma, and early intervention, but also has shown to be persistent and successful advocates in bridging the gap between science and practice through their own different pathways, contributed for guaranteeing children's and families' rights all over the world. Dr. Michael Guralnik, with his research done in the area of children with special needs, the development of his developmental systems approach to early childhood intervention, and the creation of an international network of researchers, practitioners, and families that he shares for many years, the International Society of Early Intervention, which have been so important for spreading evidence-based practices all over the world. Dr. Bruce Perry, through his research work on brain development and impact of trauma, being a senior fellow of the Child Trauma Academy, as well as the books that he and Maya Zalawitz published, The Boy That Was Raised as a Dog and Born for Love, and his latest publication with Oprah Winfrey, What Happened to You?, which puts crucial science facts in a simple, accessible, and motivated language for readers, allowing an understanding of brain development and the importance of positive interactions in early years. And also Dr. José Boavida for his extensive commitment to early childhood intervention as a practitioner and his persistent involvement on the establishment of an early childhood intervention system in Portugal, as well as his contribution to expand his knowledge and experience supporting the development of early childhood legislation and policy systems in other European countries on behalf of Early Aid. So welcome, thank you very much. It's an honor for all of us to have you here today, and the floor is yours. Professor Michael, we'll start with you. The mic, Michael, need to turn the mic on.
Can you hear me well now?
Yes, now fine.
Yes.
Fine.
Good. I want to thank you, Anna. I really appreciate the opportunity to present at this important conference. And in the time that I have available to me, I really want to underscore the fact that the field of early intervention in its history has made it completely clear that the pathway, I believe, towards optimal child development and family well-being is through our support of families. Now, that's a very simple and straightforward statement, but all of us in the field realize how complicated it really is to bring it to reality. So what I want to do in the time that I do have available is just to take you through a bit of the process and a bit of the framework to see how we can get to that point. If I could have the first slide, please, that would be great.
Dimitri, can you please put the slides up for Dr.
Coming, it's coming. Apologies, the computer doesn't want to work.
There we go. If you could put it on slide mode, that would be good. Make it a little larger for everybody. But I guess people can get those afterwards if that's the case. Is that right?
Can you see it full slide?
Yes, thank you. So
it's not yet full slide, Tim.
Right.
Is good like that?
Yeah, it's okay now.
Yeah, thank you.
Sorry.
So of course, the process we're talking about here in this support of families for early intervention is a complicated one. And I think all of us in the preceding comments and all of the work that's going on in Europe and all over the world, it's made it quite clear that the key to all of this is our ability to build relationships. And these relationships are absolutely critical for us to understand all of the characteristics of the children that we are involved with, their behavior patterns, their interaction styles, their special interests, their special skills. And I think all of us would also agree that that when we initially enter into this complex process we call early intervention, that it is ideal to begin with a sort of a narrative between the early intervention team and the families themselves. And that narrative can consist of sort of having a structure that allows families and the early intervention team to talk about what's the characteristics and what's the patterns of the child, say, participating in family routines and activities. What about exploring the environment independently? How does the child do for communicating with social purposes? And give us some examples of this. What about playing independently, constructively, or developing self-help skills, etc.? These actual bullet points are really central to development and very crucial to families, and allow the early intervention team and the families to engage in a discussion where what you could ultimately come up with is a set of child goals that are agreed upon in a language that everyone understands. If I could have the next slide, please. But to do this, when you have this informal structure, you absolutely have to have a framework in order to organize early intervention, as you know. I can always send you this slide. I know it's complicated, particularly in a format like this. But the slide does demonstrate that we have 3 levels of this developmental systems approach. And the idea of this is to help use this as a framework to help us understand all of the characteristics of early intervention and to figure out what the priorities are based upon what was discussed in the first slide, the agreed upon goals between family and the early intervention team and the involvement of the child as appropriate. So you can see quite clearly from the first level that the child's engagement with the world is going to dependent on developmental resources of the child and the organizational processes which indeed organize and integrate those developmental resources to come up with a set of goals. And children vary dramatically in all of these characteristics. As development proceeds, however, certainly the social and cognitive competencies of the child are critical. But the argument is, without any question, that family patterns of interaction, these relationships as such, in terms of parent-child transactions, family orchestrated child experiences, and the health and safety of the child as provided by the family, are absolutely critical to support the child's development to the goals that would have been agreed upon based on information from the first slide, as well as other formal and informal and observational examinations that might occur throughout the process. The key point here is that these are, particularly family patterns of interaction, are developmental mechanisms which are well designed, well described, and well understood, and they are proximal mechanisms which influence children's social and cognitive competence. Of course, we can't forget about the third level, family resources, which consists of a set of risk and protective factors that are familiar to all of us, including the personal characteristics of the families, of the parents particularly, and the maternal and the material resources, both financial and social. Now, like all systems, in order to optimize child engagement in the goals that we think about, it requires adjustments. And that's true for all children. And I would suggest that the developmental systems approach and all of the interactions that occur and all the knowledge that we've gained from developmental intervention science really apply to all children and therefore require adjustments by all families in order to try to optimize the development of their young child. If I could have the next slide, please. But there are challenges for sure for all children. Actually, there was a slide before that. Is that not the case? Okay, let's leave it at that. Yes. So what I really want to point out here is if you look at the central area of that slide, which is bordered in blue, that it is the case that all children, as I mentioned, with or without disabilities or delays, have challenges. And most families adjust quite well to those particular challenges without any question. But it's also the case that many families could benefit from our support of the early intervention team to enable them to maximize these 11 components of family patterns of interaction. And I just want to make sort of the central point of my comments this afternoon, essentially saying that one could argue that early intervention constitutes our ability to support all of the 11 components of family patterns of interaction. And in fact, we have developed in the field over the past decades very creative, highly sophisticated, evidence-based practices which support each and every one of these particular components. Now the next slide, if I could. An example of this might be if we consider parent-child interactions where we might want to assist families to develop a discourse framework with their child, again, a relationship or an instructional partnership or socio-emotional connectedness. We have many, many curricula for a discourse framework, how to support expansions of the child in conversation, modeling, contingent responding. Certainly, we have an awful lot of curricula and strategies that can help the early intervention team support families to develop an instructional partnership, how to scaffold properly, how to understand and recognize the zone of proximal development so the child can solve problems independently. And of course, building socio-emotional connectedness, central to which is a secure attachment to allow the child to explore and develop relationships in the most sophisticated manner possible. Next slide, if you could. Now, beyond these efforts to support family patterns of interaction, of course, is the third level, which is family resources, which again, you can see there bordered in blue. We have a set of risk and protective factors that families bring to the situation, but also could be modified as the child develops over time. There's many influences on that. I think the point that I'm trying to make here is that as part of the early intervention team, although this is very complicated in many respects, we have to take a comprehensive view of early intervention because these family resources have a direct effect on family patterns of interaction. The next slide, please. And also, as we can see from the top now, the blue barriers that we have to individualize without any question so that we can maximize family patterns of interaction. And we have now many sophisticated measures that help us understand the developmental resources and organizational processes in children so that we can integrate with our goals of supporting all 11 family patterns of interaction. So again, there is a mechanism here, a systems that reflect all of the interactions that we can very easily design in our early intervention programs to do the best we possibly can. And then the next slide, if you could, in my final slide. Nope. What I just want to conclude is just to highlight the key principles that I think one should attend to in early intervention systems design. As I've emphasized, relationships at all levels are absolutely the key. Comprehensiveness, of course, is critical, not only in terms of individualizing for children, but also the 11 components of family patterns of interaction and our support for the family resources because they are so critical. And development, of course, is a dynamic process, changing momentarily, certainly over time. And it's important to maintain continuity in our early intervention practice, screening mechanisms, surveillance mechanisms, ways of properly assessment, because so many things change that we don't fully understand, but we need to attend to. So then in conclusion, one could argue that the goal of early intervention is to optimize family patterns of interaction. And I think that's a fair comment. And I think if we do so, that we will be able to maximize child development and certainly enhance family well-being to a greater degree as possible. So I want to just conclude with those statements, and I look forward to the comments of other panelists.
So, oops, I don't know. Okay, so thank you so much. It would be a pleasure. Are you listening now? Okay. It's my honor and pleasure to present at this international conference, and it's also an honor to be able to share this panel with Professor Michael Guralnik, Professor Bruce Perry, and Professor Ana Serrano. This Agora project was very rewarding for me, and I was able to meet so many devoted ECI professionals from the countries involved. Unfortunately, COVID-19 limited our face-to-face contact. The topic of the panel is importance of the early years. I'll address it by stressing the importance for different countries to invest in the development of an ECI system. For this purpose, I'll refer the Portuguese model, which is the one I've been involved in the last decades. There are some very specific aspects that make ECI different from intervening with older children, and that are responsible for the paradigm shift in the provision of services that occurred in the last couple of decades. The first one is level of family involvement. Of course, families are always involved when they have a child with special needs, but it's different when the child is an infant, a toddler, or when the child is an adolescent, for example. The second specific aspect, and we heard now Professor Bruce talking about this, is related with neuroimmaturity, and we should just take in consideration that all the major processes of neurodevelopment, neurogenesis, migration, differentiation, arborization, synaptogenesis, synaptic pruning, myelination, they take place in the second half of the prenatal period and in the first 3-4 years of life, and some even further. And so ECI really operates when basic neurodevelopment is really happening, which of course has an influence on the way we should provide services. A third point I'd like to stress is the way small children learn. And research tells us that they learn differently from older children. Learning takes place through repetition of meaningful activities during daily routines with familiar caregivers and other children, and not in massive trials as a therapeutic session might be. And the last, the prevention or the preventive perspective of ECI related with intervening in children with no disability, but biological or environmentally at risk. And so what is important for the development of an ECI system? First, I would say to adopt an evidence-based approach of ECI services provided in natural environments according to an acceptable philosophical framework and involving the families at all possible levels. The second, to define a target population according to defined eligibility criteria, and to develop an identification and referral system. A third, to define which agencies should be involved: the Ministry of Health, Education, Social Policy, like in Portugal, NGOs, private institutions, and very relevant for any kind of cross-sectoral work to assure a good coordination and define who pays what, which is really important. And last, the structure of the system and which professionals should be involved at national, regional, or community levels. SNIPI is the name of our system, and it stands for National System of Early Childhood Intervention. In Portuguese, of course, you have it in the gray area. And the most relevant aspect is that it's a public responsibility cross-sectoral system resulting from the coordination and the contribution of 3 ministries: the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, and the Ministry of Social Support. The structure, for those who are not familiar, this is a map of Portugal, and the structure is pretty simple. We have a national coordinating committee with 2 representatives from each of the ministries involved. We have 5 regional subcommittees with 1 representative of each of the ministries, the sectors involved. 18 technical supervision teams, 1 per district. These zones in Portugal, geographical areas are districts, and we have 156 local early intervention teams that cover and give support to all the children that apply for services in Portugal. The upper 2 levels are basically coordinating levels. The lower 2 are more practical ones, the local teams where ECI happens, and the technical supervision teams with professionals that give support to the professionals that support families and children. Let's speak a little bit about local teams. Local teams are similar all over the country. All the 156 teams are very similar. They vary, of course, in size, in the number of children and families being served, and in the number of professionals. We have teams in Lisbon that give support to 400 children and families, and we have teams in rural areas that give support to like 35, 40 children, and so they differ. But they have all the therapists, psychologists, and social workers are paid by the Ministry of Social Affairs through regional services. The Ministry of Health, through local health centers, provides primary care physicians and nurses, and usually those local health centers are the team headquarters. And the Ministry of Education provides all the educators and special educators from the teams. And so the teams include a different group of professionals. They are interdisciplinary, and they are also interagency. Of course, not forgetting the need to increase family involvement at all levels. We are still in the process of doing it because there are some limitations in our legislation that at this point are being regulated to try to increase family involvement. It's a never-ending process. We still need to provide professional training, another never-ending process, and define quality standards. 2 other relevant aspects for successful intersectoral work is what we consider transdisciplinary teamwork, with the ideal sharing of principles, information, goals, and strategies, considering family as team members, giving and recognizing the important role of the case mediator that ideally should be for each child and family from the discipline most related with the biggest problem, and something we are still evolving, stability among team members, because we have some high turnover in the education sector. The other relevant aspect that I want to stress is professional development. And professional development should include, besides all the training directed to individual disciplines, what I call team-based training. It's extremely important to develop teamwork. And besides bodies of knowledge and skills, it's also important to include in this training values and philosophy. This is the way to provide a shared vision about service delivery, and also to provide a common core of content across disciplines. And so transdisciplinary teams are much beyond the sum of different disciplines, and they have a very special dynamic that we should not forget. With a central focus on professional training and professional development, this has been one of our concerns. All the countries' ECI partners were able to get together to develop a guidebook with recommended practices in early intervention. This guidebook was funded by a foundation that we have in Lisbon that has a lot of money, which is Calouste Gulbenkian Foundation. And on one side, we had ANIP, the Portuguese National Association of ECI, serving as an umbrella organization for a parents association and all the universities that provide ECI training in the country. And on the other side, SNIPI, the system, with the participation of lots of experienced professionals in the field. And the final result was the guidebook, this guidebook, that includes an extensive revision of the literature made by the authors, altogether with 20 years of experience in the field of ECI, and enriched by a big number of practical case studies that local teams, professionals, and families shared with the authors. Fortunately, and thanks to the Agora project, the Portuguese guide is helping colleagues from other countries, and at this point, besides the Portuguese and the English edition, we have available at Early Aid website a Bulgarian edition, a Polish edition, a Slovakian, and an Hungarian edition. Also financed by the Agora project, a Romanian, a Greek, and Albanian editions will follow. And with other financing sources, the guide is being translated into Ukrainian, Russian, Serbian, Turkish, and Spanish, totalizing 14 different languages, including, of course, the Portuguese. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Boavida, for your presentation and also description of how we also developed the guidebook, which was an important tool for our project. Thank you very much for your presence here. If there is any question, we will forward to you so that you can answer if necessary after the session. And I will then move to the next presentation. So I will pass the floor to Tim, who is going to coordinate the next panel.
Luc will be
moderating. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Anna, for this very interesting panel. And I also, on behalf of Espd, would like to thank Early Aid for the very professional contribution to the objectives of this Agora project. Thank you very much. Dear colleagues, dear participants, over the last couple of hours, we looked at what is happening in reality, in practice, in different countries, and that was presented to you in a very interesting panel. And we also looked into scientific data, information, research that clearly proves why early childhood intervention is so important. In the last panel, we will take a more political approach to things, and we will look at what can governments do, what can authorities do, and what can the European Union do to facilitate the further development and implementation of early childhood intervention. And for that, we have lined up a very interesting group of people here. I think we have a representative of the European Commission, we have a representative of the government of Poland, Bulgaria, and Slovakia. So, dear panelists, welcome. Let's immediately dive into the topic, into the debate, and I would like Madame Géraldine Libreau to open on behalf of the European Commission. You worked a lot on the child guarantee, of course, but you also have set up a task force that worked on early childhood education and care, which comes in at least a part of his objectives very close to ECI. Could you explain a bit how important the child guarantee might be for the debate that we are having here, and share with us the main findings of that working group on early childhood education and care, please? Geraldine, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, great. Well, I have prepared a few slides to show you as reference. And I will indeed speak about what we have been doing at European level, and that includes the child guarantee, but also what we have been doing at policy level, and also to support practitioners and member states to achieve inclusive early childhood education and care. So I guess you can now see my slides. So what I would like to refer to as a start is the Council recommendation on high quality early childhood education and care systems, which was adopted in May 2019 by the member states, who have agreed what quality would look like in a good early childhood education and care system. And there has been broad agreement that there is no quality without inclusion. So it's a very high featuring component of quality of the systems. And this Council recommendation includes the European Quality Framework for ECEC. And there are 5 pillars for this framework, which are access, and that is really important for children with disabilities. This is, of course, staff, well-qualified staff, trained staff, and enough staff to look after the children. A curriculum or pedagogical framework should be in place for all the settings, including also settings looking after children of the very early years. Also monitoring and evaluation and adequate governance and funding are essential to ensure quality. Then what we have been doing is to have this working group, of which Espd was a member. So we're very grateful for your very interesting participation and contribution to the work. So during 2 years, we have discussed how to professionalize staff and also how to maximize inclusion in early childhood education and care. And we have produced this toolkit for inclusive ECEC. It brings together lots of approaches and strategies and examples from countries, from practitioners, also resources like guides and guidelines for the practitioners. And it's all based on research findings and policy recommendations from experts, from academics, from NGOs, who are all looking into inclusive ECEC. So this toolkit is organized in different chapters. The first one is a more general chapter which looks at universal policies and practices which benefit all children, because we believe that an inclusive system should first of all welcome all the children, whoever they are, whatever their background is, and that will benefit all the children. So there are loads of measures which should be put in place which will benefit all the children. And then we look at additional specific measures to answer the specific needs of children with disabilities, children with a migrant background, Roma children, and other hard-to-reach children. In the chapter about children with disabilities and or additional learning needs, we look at different national strategies from a number of countries who were part of the working group. And we also look at the inclusive practices. So the first thing we think is really important is to define a vision for the setting. So it's a vision which should be shared by all the staff and communicated with the families, so that there is a common understanding of the vision and the approaches which will be used in the setting to welcome the children with disabilities. Then we think that adapted pedagogies, curricular learning plans are very useful, and we give some examples of how this can be achieved. And then we also look at involving specialized teachers, associations, volunteers, health practitioners, so that the staff who work in the ECEC setting are not on their own. They can benefit from the expertise of a whole range of professionals and specialists. So this is what you can find in the toolkit. I just want to mention that we are organizing a series of webinars throughout spring and also after the summer. On Thursday, we will have one about how to work with families and the whole community. And very interestingly for your audience, is in October, we will have a webinar on how to deliver quality services to children with disabilities. So you can learn more and hear some examples from policymakers and from practitioners on how we can do that. Then to speak about the European Child Guarantee, this is a proposal by the Commission, also stemming from a proposal from the civil society and the European Parliament. It's on the table of the Council of the Member States to be adopted hopefully next week. And that would be a Council recommendation implementing a child guarantee with the objective to prevent and combat social exclusion by guaranteeing access of children in need to a set of key services, which I will detail afterwards. So the target group here is to be defined by each member state. But basically what we are proposing is that children in need are defined as persons under the age of 18 years who are at risk of poverty or social exclusion. And we propose a list of those children. And of course, children with a disability are included into the target group. Then what are these set of key services that we propose? We propose that there is an effective access for children in need to healthy nutrition and adequate housing, and also free and effective access for children in need to early childhood education and care, but also education and school-based activities, meaning school trips or additional equipment that you need for the science classes or for the sport or for the ICT and so on. Also free and effective access for children in need to at least one healthy meal each school day and to healthcare. And then we ask the member states to develop an enabling policy framework, which means that there should be a holistic strategy to make sure that all these services are worked together and delivered in an efficient way to the children in need. So this is the proposal on the table, and hopefully the member states will adopt it next week. So I invite you to follow the news next week, because then after that, there will be, within a reasonable amount of time, 6 months, maybe 10 months, national plans being prepared for national implementation of this child guarantee. So to find out more about everything we do on early childhood education and care, this is where you will find the information on our publications, including the toolkit for inclusive ECEC and the information on the webinars which we organize. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madame Libreau, for this very clear presentation. And also thank you for the very nice cooperation we had over the last 2 years. If you would like to have an input from our side for that webinar on quality of services for children with disabilities, of course we are available. Many of our members work on the quality of services, and also in the framework of the new disability rights strategy, there is a flagship initiative on services of excellence for persons with disabilities. So we are at your disposal, so to say, if we could contribute. Feel free to contact us. Thank you very much. Maybe also for the audience, and we are with many, as you see, what was brought up by the representative of the Commission here is also work that can be done or can be implemented using ESF Plus funding, or using even ERDF, so the recovery fund, in the follow-up of the corona crisis. Also there it is possible for member states to allocate budgets to the further development so that families, communities can recover from the impact of the crisis. I don't know whether you want to add to that in terms of funding of projects, Geraldine?
Yeah, I think there is the national level, the national policymakers who can benefit from this, the funding you mentioned. I can also mention that the Erasmus Plus program is very much open to early childhood education and care, and that we have a lot of projects which fund staff who work in the sector, and also small organizations NGOs, research structures, local municipalities who can experiment ways to work with families and with children with disabilities. And we have a lot of projects, so you can use their results and you can put up, you can build your own project as well and benefit from Erasmus Plus funding.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's now, dear participants, make a little tour through Europe. And let's start in Slovakia. In Slovakia, and from Slovakia, we have the Deputy Minister of Labor, Social Affairs and Family with us, Madam Gaborshkova. Is that more or less correct pronounced? Sonia, could you please inform the participants here, just in a few words maybe, how does your government support families that have disabled family members, children in their family? And how do you see the impact of the child guarantee on how you will further develop the support systems in your country? Please, you have the floor.
Takže dobrý deň prajem, vážené dámy, vážení páni, milí kolegovia. Verím, že dnešná medzinárodná konferencia nebude iba jedna z mnohých, ale bude jedna z kľúčových, ktorá prinesie model podpory na neriešiteľné problémy a situácie v rodinách s deťmi, ktoré na to čakajú už dlhé roky. Možno na začiatku poviem, že volám sa Sonia Gaboršáková, bola som predstavená ako štátna tajomnička Ministerstva práce, ale v prvom rade chcem povedať, že 20 rokov sa venujem problematike detí a mladých ľudí so zdravotným znevýhodnením a k politike som sa dostala práve skrz moju odbornú prácu, ktorú som robila na začiatku na komunitnom princípe, potom v rámci takých regionálnych politík, a následne som sa dostala do veľkej politiky, kde sa snažím naozaj naprávať veci, ktoré v minulosti na Slovensku boli významne potlačané aj práve vo vzťahu k deťom so zdravotným znevýhodnením. Možno z takých mojich profesionálnych skúseností, aby si vedeli dotvoriť predstavu, že nie som iba politikom, ale teda o tom, čo aj dnešná medzinárodná konferencia hovorí, tomu rozumiem. Vyštudovala som sociálnu prácu, sociálnu pedagogiku a vychovávateľstvo, čo sú všetky odbory, ktoré istým spôsobom napomáhajú vidieť veci komplexne, ak chcete riešiť naozaj včasnú intervenciu u detí, ktoré to potrebujú. V roku 1999 som spolu s kolegami vytvorila taký komplexný systém sociálnych služieb za podpory švajčiarskeho finančného mechanizmu. A teda bola som 5 rokov pod supervíziou Švajčiarov, kde som chcela, aby rodiny, kde sa narodí dieťa so zdravotným znevýhodnením, neboli odkázané na to, že nebudú vládať a dieťa sa dostane do pobytovej služby niekde ďaleko od rodiny, ale bola som zastancom toho, že urobme všetko na komunitnom princípe, aby dieťa ostalo v rodine. To sa mi podarilo. A teda naozaj dodnes funguje systém rôznych komplexných sociálnych služieb, ktoré rozvíjajú deti so zdravotným znevýhodnením. Posledné 3 roky dozadu som pripojila k sociálnym službám aj teda školu, lebo zistili sme, že deti, ktoré v minulosti na Slovensku boli tzv. Nevzdelávateľné, tak v podstate sa strácali akože vo vzdelávaní, pretože potrebovali aj sociálnu starostlivosť, aj zdravotnú starostlivosť. A ten komplex, ten Dom svätej Anny, ktorý som teda vytvorila, mal tú možnosť pomáhať deťom nielen vo výchove a vzdelávaní, ale zároveň sa postaral aj o tie biologické potreby, tak vytvoril sa určitý taký systém pomoci, ktorý som vedela, že je efektívny a ale v ktorom mi niečo chýbalo a bola to tá včasná intervencia. Keďže tie rodiny je potrebné naozaj podchytiť hneď na začiatku, lebo tá práca s tým konkrétnym dieťaťom je neskôr veľmi náročná, aj konkrétne s tou rodinou, tak bolo potrebné vlastne sa pustiť možno do takej na Slovensku neznámej služby včasnej intervencii a teda výjsť za tými rodičmi s tými komplexnými službami do terénu, priamo do prirodzeného prostredia. Čo sa mi aj podarilo a teda od roku 2015 funguje služba včasnej intervencie. Napríklad k dnešnému dňu sa poskytuje 53 deťom z okresu Stará Ľubovňa. A teda naozaj si myslím, že je to dobrá predispozícia na to, aby sme sa u niektorých netvárili, že patria do špeciálnych škôl, ale či patria do špeciálnych, alebo môžu byť inkluzívne vzdelávané a za podpory naozaj toho sociálneho zabezpečenia sme vytvorili model, ktorý môže byť pilotom pre celé Slovensko. V rokoch 2006 a 2020 som sa stala poslankyňou Národnej rady Slovenskej republiky a teda snažila som sa túto problematiku presadzovať v rámci práve tejto funkcie. Podarilo sa mi práve vo vzťahu k ľuďom a deťom so zdravotným znevýhodnením s diagnózou autizmus presadiť viacero prvkov ochrany. Zároveň sa mi podarilo vymazať z legislatíve rôzne nezmysly, ktoré istým spôsobom hovorili o tom, že buď máte príspevky, alebo rozvíjate svoje dieťa. Kombinácia toho neexistovala. Čiže to bol taký možno môj začiatok k tomu, kde som neúnavne politikom vysvetľovala, že je hlúpo sa tváriť a šetriť na veciach, na ktorých netreba šetriť a na veciach, ktoré je potrebné zafinancovať, tak tam sa tvárime ako svety za dedinou. U nás sa to takto hovorí. Od marca roku 2020 pracujem teda na Ministerstve práce, sociálnych vecí ako štátna tajomnička a áno, aj oblasť ranej intervencie je súčasťou mojej práce a myslím si, že sa snažím o to, aby sme túto problematiku vnímali nie len ako niečo, čo je nutné, lebo sú niekde nejaké medzinárodné dohovory, ale je to nutné preto, aby sme naozaj pomohli tým, ktorí trpia a dali príležitosť tým, ktorí to potrebujú. Naozaj do roku 99 sme mali prevažne pobytové služby, pretože socializmus dal ľudí so zdravotným znevýhodnením na pokraj, čo som videla aj v praxi, že rodičia a deti so zdravotným znevýhodnením sa hanbili za svoje deti a preto naozaj bolo ťažké, keď som budovala tento systém v praxi, im povedať, že nesmiete sa hanbiť, musíme im dať príležitosť a aj verejnosti hovoriť o tom, že teda títo ľudia patria medzi nás. A preto som začala už ako poslankyňa presadzovať rôzne veci, lebo som kritizovala, že posledných 12 rokov sa neuskutočnili žiadne významné reformné prvky v oblasti sociálnych služieb a tých ľudí nemôžeme len zatvárať, ale musíme im dávať príležitosť ostať v prirodzenom prostredí čo najdlhšie a musíme to robiť naozaj tak, že podporovať tú rodinu, pokiaľ chce sa postarať o toho svojho príbuzného alebo o to dieťa čo najdlhšie, tak vytvorme všetky možné alternatívy k tomu, aby sme sa hlásili k tým komunitným službám. V konečnom dôsledku aj prijaté medzinárodné dokumenty nás zaväzujú k implementácii viacerých reformných opatrení ako napríklad deinštitucionalizácia sociálnych služieb, budovanie nového systému komunitných služieb, vrátanie služieb včasnej intervencii pre rodiny s deťmi v ranom veku od 0 do 7 rokov. To znamená, sú to všetky veci, ktoré sa mi podarilo presadiť aj do programového vyhlásenia vlády, aby to bolo niečo záväzné, kedy to bude viazať politikov na Slovensku, naozaj začať nový reštart toho, že je dôležité dať prvú šancu a podchytiť tú rodinu čo najskôr a potom vytvoriť prostredie, aby ten človek ostal doma čo najdlhšie. Je to aj humánne a je to na druhej strane aj lacnejšie pre štát, ak vytvoríme služby, také služby, ktoré tej rodine pomôžu. V programovom vyhlásení vlády, ktoré je podľa môjho názoru až ambiciózne na Slovensko, sme sa zaviazali vytvoriť tzv. Jednotný systém posudzovania, čiže hodnotenia pre občanov so zdravotným znevýhodnením podľa medzinárodných noriem VODAS 2. Taktiež nový zákon o dlhodobej starostlivosti, ktorá naozaj neprepájala sociálnu starostlivosť a zdravotnú starostlivosť a každý sa tu hral na svojom ministerstve na niečo, ako keby raz je ten človek pacient, to dieťatko je pacient a raz je, ja neviem, klientom sociálnej služby a raz je žiačikom základnej školy. Ale nikto to nechce dávať dohromady a preto napríklad ten nový zákon o dlhodobej starostlivosti začíname riešiť takzvanou integrovanou sociálno-zdravotnou starostlivosťou, čiže prepojením sociálnych služieb, zdravotných a samozrejme vo vzťahu k včasnej intervencii alebo ranej intervencii je to aj školstvo a vzdelávanie. Jednotný koordinovaný medzirezortný sociálno-výchovno-zdravotný systém.
Dear Minister, sorry for interrupting, and it's great to hear somebody talking with so much passion and fire for your role, but time is flying. Is it possible to conclude in, let's say, 2 minutes max? Would that be possible? Thank you.
Áno, ja som pripravená do 2 minút skončiť. Čiže toto sú hlavné veci, čo sa týka programového vyhlásenia vlády, kde vás chcem v podstate uistiť, že ak politikov nejakým spôsobom nezašrubujeme do niečoho, čo sa musia toho držať, tak sa ďalej nepohneme. To znamená, že programové vyhlásenie je ambiciózne. Vláda sa zaviazala aj, čo sa týka dostupnosti včasnej intervencii pre rodiny s deťmi so zdravotným znevýhodnením zabezpečiť v rámci celého Slovenska, aj taký trvalo udržateľný systém a taktiež pre deti zo sociálne znevýhodneného prostredia, pretože s týmto na Slovensku máme tiež problém. Začiatkom roku 2021 bola zriedená aj medzirezortná pracovná skupina, ktorej hlavnou zodpovednosťou je príprava národnej stratégie rozvoja koordinovaných služieb včasnej intervencie a ranej starostlivosti na Slovensku, čo si tiež myslím, že prepojí jednotlivé rezorty a nebude sa každý hrať na svojom piesku. No a určite do budúcnosti chcem povedať, že intervencia má byť zameraná na rodinu. Ak nepomôžeme tej rodine nejako zvládnuť tú situáciu a nedáme jej podporné služby, môžeme očakávať, že výsledky toho, že to dieťa sa bude rozvíjať a tá rodina bude normálne bežne fungovať, sa nedostavia. Čiže urobíme všetko preto, aby sa ľuďom na Slovensku a deťom na Slovensku žilo lepšie. Ďakujem pekne a ospravedlňujem sa, že som sa tak rozohnila.
No, that is great. That is fantastic. We need people full of passion to indeed push this agenda, and it's always great to listen to an expert that also is in a way responsible for making the right decisions at governmental level. So thank you very, very much. Let's now turn to to Poland, to Madam Marcela Masialek. I hope that again this is more or less correctly pronounced, Minister of State, and I would say working on inclusive education in Poland for so long, having so much experience to share with us. Please, Marcela, you have the floor.
Witam wszystkich bardzo serdecznie. Przysłuchuję się od dłuższego czasu dyskusji, prezentacjom, doświadczeniom. My też tu w Polsce mamy i swoje doświadczenia, swoje osiągnięcia, ale też i wyzwania, przed którymi stoimy. Ja jestem przedstawicielem już 5. rok Ministerstwa Edukacji, teraz Edukacji i Nauki, więc połączone 2 resorty, co pomaga też przygotować bardziej kompleksową zmianę i wsparcie dla dzieci, uczniów, rodzin, osób uczących się. I nasze doświadczenie to, jeśli chodzi o wczesne wspomaganie, tak to się nazywa w systemie oświaty, ale też używamy właśnie określenia wczesna interwencja, jak to bardziej funkcjonuje w systemie ochrony zdrowia. Mieści się w dokumencie przygotowanym przez moich współpracowników pod moim kierunkiem. Dokument brzmi Edukacja wysokiej jakości dla wszystkich. Myśmy przygotowali też wstępnie prezentację, ale być może w sposób krótki, bo nie wiem dokładnie ile mam czasu, powiem, że ten dokument jest w tej chwili przekuwany na zapisy ustawy o wsparciu dziecka, ucznia i rodziny, w którym bardzo istotną rolę odgrywa wczesna interwencja, wczesne wspomaganie rodziny, tak naprawdę od okresu prenatalnego dziecka poprzez życie dorosłe człowieka. I Centrum Dziecka i Rodziny, instytucja, którą chcemy utworzyć, ma być tą instytucją, która zintegruje działania, które już w tej chwili są prowadzone i spowoduje też, że będziemy mogli szybciej trafić albo rodzina będzie mogła otrzymać pomoc w momencie, kiedy dziecko będzie zagrożone rozwojowo, niepełnosprawnością czy jakimikolwiek problemami. Ponieważ mamy oczywiście w systemie wczesną interwencję, wczesne wsparcie, to działa, natomiast uważamy, że dopiero zintegrowanie działań 3 resortów, edukacji, rodziny oraz zdrowia spowoduje, że będzie ona bardziej trafna, bardziej skuteczna, bardziej efektywna. I tak naprawdę przed nami bardzo duże wyzwanie, powołanie instytucji na bazie tych, co jest i skonsolidowanie działań międzyresortowych, przełamywanie barier międzyresortowych, ale też problemów z połączeniem kilku instytucji i zintegrowanie ich działań. My tutaj bardzo mocno liczymy na to Centrum Dziecka i Rodziny jako instytucji, która tak naprawdę będzie z jednej strony koordynować wsparcie, które jest w regionie, w powiecie, ale także będzie prowadzić i wspierać rodzinę, wzmacniać potencjał rodziny. Cały nasz dokument Edukacja wysokiej jakości dla wszystkich to jest tak naprawdę nazwa tego dokumentu ewoluowała z edukacji włączającej właśnie na edukację wysokiej jakości dla wszystkich, dlatego że tak też rozumiemy włączenie, czyli traktowanie wszystkich uczniów jako uczniów, które mają zindywidualizowane potrzeby i zaoferowanie i ocena tych potrzeb oraz kierowanie odpowiedniego wsparcia. Chcę też powiedzieć, że chcemy właściwie gdzieś za miesiąc skończyć pracę nad ustawą. Czekają nas szerokie już konsultacje ustawowe tych zmian, ale bardzo mocną wagę przywiązujemy właśnie do wczesnej interwencji. Tak jak tu pięknie hasło tej konferencji brzmi, by być może zmienić historię życia dziecka na lepszą historię, bardziej efektywną i bardziej pełną. Myślę, że to, co jest przed nami, to też przełamanie pewnych barier w podejściu do tego, jak uczyć i jakie cele szkoła też edukacyjna powinna sobie wyznaczać. W polskim systemie edukacji są 3 nurty kształcenia. Jest kształcenie ogólne, szkoły ogólnodostępne, są szkoły integracyjne i szkolnictwo i ośrodki specjalne. Zdecydowana większość dzieci jest w kształceniu ogólnym, ogólnodostępnym, to jest 70%. Czy to jest dużo, czy to jest mało, no to myślę, że i tak następuje progres. My widzimy, że będzie coraz więcej dzieci z orzeczeniami o kształceniu specjalnym w szkołach ogólnodostępnych, natomiast jest kwestia dobrego przygotowania nauczycieli i dobrego też wsparcia rodziny i rodziców. Tutaj bardzo mocno wybrzmiało w różnych referatach wsparcie potencjału rodziny, że to nie chodzi o to, żeby się skoncentrować na ilości specjalistów, na odbieraniu jakby kompetencji rodzinie, tylko zbudowaniu wiary rodziny we własne siły, a tam, gdzie to jest konieczne, oczywiście wsparcie specjalistów. Też oczywiście chcemy zbudować system, który będzie miał centralne skonsolidowanie, a także te skonsolidowanie na poziomie naszych jednostek samorządowych, czyli powiatów, ale chcemy też wykorzystać doświadczenia organizacji pozarządowych i innych instytucji, które dzisiaj z powodzeniem dzieci wspierają, ale chcemy, żeby to było powszechne wsparcie, nie tylko tam, gdzie ktoś ma pasję, ale też stworzyć systemowe, takie wczesną interwencję, wczesne wspomaganie, ale też wsparcie rodziny, która w momencie uzyskania informacji o tym, że dziecko może mieć problemy rozwojowe, potrzebuje może nawet w odpowiednim momencie wsparcie rodziny może, jak tutaj też w tych poprzednich wykładach słyszeliśmy, bardzo mocno zmienić całe życie dziecka. Oczywiście zdajemy sobie sprawę, że jest potrzebna i rehabilitacja, i wsparcie specjalistów i takie wsparcie, czy koordynację tego wsparcia zapewniałoby Centrum Dziecka i Rodziny. Centrum Dziecka i Rodziny, które zajmuje się wczesną interwencją i wsparciem, też koordynowałoby dalszy proces edukacyjny dziecka, a także włączenie w życie społeczne, w dorosłości, w życie zawodowe. Nasze tu założenia i Centrum Dziecka i Rodziny, i edukacji włączającej znalazły się w tym najnowszym dokumencie prezentowanym też przez premiera Mateusza Morawieckiego. Wiemy, że taka wola rządu jest, żeby skoordynować, wzmocnić to wczesne wspomaganie oraz wzmocnić edukację włączającą. My mamy też na to odpowiednie środki z programów unijnych, też to realizujemy już w tej perspektywie, planujemy wsparcie w przyszłej perspektywie. Jestem dobrej myśli, aczkolwiek wiem, że to jest bardzo trudne wyzwanie, by przekonać, jaka to jest wartość wszystkich, dla wszystkich wartość edukacja włączająca, że nikt na tym nie traci, a zyskuje, ale oczywiście to jest tylko wtedy możliwe, kiedy będziemy do tego i mentalnie, i profesjonalnie przygotowani. Czyli z jednej strony Centra Dziecka i Rodziny, wczesna interwencja, wczesne wspomaganie oraz prowadzenie dziecka, wspieranie rodziny, mądre, nieinwazyjne, by umiało sobie z wyzwaniami poradzić. To tyle, jeśli będą jakieś pytania, to chętnie odpowiem. Dziękuję bardzo.
Thank you very much, the Minister of State, for your contribution to this discussion here. Thank you for sharing your ambition for the coming periods and also the more practical way how you will approach that. Thank you very much. Also, the reaching out to the NGOs, I think, is very important because, as we know, quite often there is a lot of experience and expertise there. Thanks. Let's now turn to our last country for today. Let's go to Bulgaria. Let's go to Bulgaria. And from Bulgaria, we have Madame Rosita Dimitrova. She is the co-chair of the Social Policy Community of the National Association of Municipalities. Rosita, you have the floor. Yes, we can hear you.
Здравейте от мен. Дано се чуваме добре, защото при мен нещо превода заглъхна. Аз искам да благодаря изключително много на Националния алианс за социална отговорност за предоставената възможност да се включа заедно с представители от Европейския...
Sorry, dear interpreters, could you speak closer to the microphone? We cannot hear you.
Excuse me.
Much better,
Yes.
thank you. Please.
Okay, така чувате ли ме?
Yes, now we can hear you. Thank you.
Да. Благодаря за възможността да участвам от името на България по тази ключова за целия свят и конкретно за нашето европейско семейство политика, свързана с ранната детска интервенция и като цяло политиките за ранното детско развитие. Изключително се радвам, че съвсем така скоро ще бъде приета от Европейската комисия гаранцията за детето, която действително поставя равен достъп на абсолютно всички деца до ключовите за развитието на всеки един човек и конкретно за развитието на детето, достъп до образование, до здравеопазване, до социални услуги, до живот в семейна среда с чист въздух, с правилно хранене. Това, което искам да споделя, разбира се, ще ми е трудно на национално ниво. На национално ниво ще кажа, че основно така фокуса спрямо всяко едно дете, без значение дали е дете с специфични потребности или е дете в друга рискова ситуация, стартира особено силно в нашата страна през 2010 година с националната стратегия Визия за деинституционализацията на социалните услуги за деца в Република България. С тази визия за деинституционализация за кратък период от време, с подкрепата и на европейските фондове, с подкрепата на много съмишленици от страна на неправителствените организации, Република България закри абсолютно всички домове за деца с увреждания и голяма част от домовете за деца лишени от родителски грижи. Последните домове, които се закриха в нашата страна за деца лишени от родителски грижи, се случи в началото на тази година, както и домовете за бебета, домовете за медико-социални грижи за деца, които бяха под така ръководството, управлението на Министерството на здравеопазването, също бяха закрити. В това отношение, още от 2003 година, основно на общините се възложи ангажимента по проучване на потребностите на населението, анализиране, планиране и представяне към така, държавните институции на съответните необходимости от социални услуги за различните целеви групи, които има общината за своите граждани. Това, което аз искам да споделя, е, че по отношение на законодателството и политиките, свързани с закрила на децата, спазването на Конвенцията по правата на човека, Конвенцията по правата на детето, Конвенцията за правата на хората с увреждания, считам, че българското законодателство е абсолютно синхронизирано и е в така изпълнение на всички конвенциални разпоредби и съответно разпоредбите, които са по Конституцията и на нашата страна. В това отношение, освен синхронизацията на законодателството, имаме и редица стратегически документи, които фокусират целево интегрираният подход между институционалното сътрудничество, съответно източниците на финансиране, партньорите, които участват и резултатите, които следва да постигнем по отношение на както подкрепата за деца в рискова ситуация, така и за децата с увреждания и разбира се темите, които споделиха и Словакия, и Полша, и всички панелисти в тази важна за всички нас конференция, свързани с приобщаващото образование. Считам, че абсолютно всички сме убедени, че ранното детско развитие следва да бъде ключова политика във всяка една страна. Считам, че всички сме убедени, че семейно ориентираният подход и подкрепата на семействата за отглеждане на децата в семейна среда трябва да бъде Ключова е всяка една страна на база на потребностите, анализа и източниците на финансиране следва да изгражда тези национални политики, които да подпомагат семействата в отглеждането на децата, които да подпомагат и да осъществяват равен достъп до образование, здравеопазване и социални услуги на всяко едно дете. По отношение на ранната детска интервенция, усилено в нашата страна тази политика започна да се прилага след 2010 година и конкретно с помощта на Европейски социален фонд през оперативната програма, която ползваме която ползва цялата страна, но от 2016 година над 60 общини в Република България изпълняват проекти по услуги за ранно детско развитие. Ключово направление в тези услуги за ранно детско развитие е ранната интервенция на уврежданията и индивидуалната педагогическа подкрепа за деца с увреждания. Казвам за този проект, защото той е много добра основа, която на база на 5 години вече изпълнение на тези политики, свързани с ранното детско развитие, ранната детска интервенция и най-вече междуинституционалното партньорство, което е необходимо, за да имаме успешни резултати, ще ни даде след анализ на изпълнението в различните общини, тези ключови позиции, които пък да спомогнат да се подобри законодателството, да се надгради законодателството, а защо не да се разработи и конкретна стратегия за ранно детско развитие на национално ниво. Това, което искам да споделя от опита на нашите експерти в услугите за ранно детско развитие, по-конкретно в услугата ранна интервенция на уврежданията и индивидуална педагогическа подкрепа, е, че основно те са се фокусирали и тяхната работа е свързана към семейно ориентираните услуги. Тези услуги се ползват от деца с увреждания или с затруднения в развитието на възраст от 0 до 7 години, от техните родители, от членовете на разширеното семейство и от всички лица, полагащи грижи за децата. Изключително е важно, както се сподели от преждеговорищите, индивидуалната консултация с родителите, индивидуалната консултация с децата и с родителите, индивидуалните затворените групи консултации на родители по определени програми, отворени групови консултации на родители по определени теми, междуекипните срещи по случаи с специалисти, които работят в детски заведения. И тук ще се позволя да дам малко вече конкретен от нашата община пример, тъй като винаги сме се старали в нашата община Велико Търново да провеждаме...
Would it be possible to conclude in a minute, please? Thank you.
Okay. 1 minute. Добре. Винаги сме се старали действително да насочваме вниманието на всичките ни специалисти в сферата на детските ясли и на детските градини по отношение наблюдение както на уменията на децата, така и наблюдение за забелязване и споделяне на специфични потребности, които изискват намесата на специалист при обгрижването на децата в съответните възрасти, било в детска ясла, било в детска градина. В това отношение аз намирам за изключително полезно екипите, които се сформираха по ранна детска интервенция, тяхното взаимодействие с медицинските специалисти в детските ясли, в детските градини, тяхното взаимодействие с педагозите в детските градини и в ранната училищна възраст. С една дума, това, което искам да направя като апел и по-скоро още един път да благодаря за организацията на тази важна конференция. И темата и политиката за ранната детска интервенция трябва да бъде ключова и трябва да се фокусира върху координация и интеграция на всички системи в посока развитието на детето. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Благодаря. Thank you very much for putting ECI in the broader context of deinstitutionalization, and also for bringing in this municipal perspective. Dear colleagues, dear participants, we have to wrap up this panel discussion. And of course, you all would have liked to ask questions and to go into debate, but we are with too many to do that, so apologies for that. But what I learned is that there is a lot of energy available also at the level of the authorities on municipal level and other levels, and that the right political momentum might be here. Also at European level, we have the childhood guarantee, we have the European disability, the new disability strategy, we have the social pillar. So the wider context, I think, is indeed facilitating further development of early childhood intervention services. So thanks a lot for your contribution, dear panelists, and thanks a lot, dear partners, for the very nice and smooth cooperation. I now would like to hand over to the president of ESPD, Mr. Jim Crow. Jim, it is your role to wrap up our fantastic and very inspiring event, the event that we had this afternoon. Jim, we're all yours.
Thank you, Luke, and I shall be brief, dear delegates. As our Secretary General, Luke Selderloo, said at the beginning of this seminar, this conference, changing the beginning of a life changes that life. And I've been amazed at a number of things to do with this conference. First of all, the number of participants in the conference, which is a tribute to the importance of this issue. How can we get things right to support children at an early age so that they can have a better quality of life and participate as citizens as they grow to adulthood in our states? I've got a tremendous sense of optimism now as a result of this conference. I have learned about the concrete outcomes of the project. I've learned about the good.
Excuse me, Jim.
Sorry,
Jim.
Some of the
Yes.
interpreters is using the wrong channel, I think.
Yeah.
So please, you're interrupting.
I'm getting
the
feedback
speaker.
from an interpreter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, Jim.
No, thank you. It's complicated with so much interpretation necessary and important.
Yes.
No, it's okay. Thank you. So first of all, I've got a sense of optimism about this conference. I love the fact that we've heard about so many concrete outcomes, that we've heard about good practice and developments in project countries. I think it's been fascinating to hear about the firm evidence base for this assistance that we've heard provided by Professors Guralnik, Perry, and Dr. Jose Boavida. I'm really intrigued by the funding possibilities that we're hearing from the European Commission. So I thank you, Commission representative. And I'm really struck by the enthusiasm of the ministers, deputy ministers, and the MEP who joined with us today, who clearly all strongly believe in child intervention and bring a passion to it, and are seeking to bring changes within the countries that they represent. And that is really remarkable to hear. So perhaps, I know many of the delegates here have been listening and have been pushing for early childhood intervention for many years, but it's perhaps we're at a turning point where we have so many representatives in positions of influence and power in government wanting to secure change for children with disabilities and their immediate families and loved ones. So, dear speakers, dear ministers, deputy ministers, thank you for your participation today. We really value it. Can I also draw attention to our partners, our invaluable partners in this Agora project? So if I can refer to Early Aid, of course, Gesenguz, Dizabnet, NASO, Ezra, and NASSP. Thank you very much for what is proving to be a very powerful and influential project. Thank you, dear delegates, for your attendance and participation today. Let's go forward and secure further change. use the video that's just been launched at the beginning of this project conference. It gets across very simply what early child intervention is about. And let's work together to secure that change, that further generations of disabled children do not grow up in orphanages or institutions or in settings remote from the family home, which cannot possibly be the same as being brought up in their own neighborhood with their loved ones and their families. Thank you very much for your participation. Thank you finally to Velux Foundation. I hope you believe that your funding has had a great multiplier effect on this project. Without you, it wouldn't have been possible. So we do thank you, Velux Foundation. We know you're concerned, particularly to provide help to Eastern Europe, and you can see great products from that in this project. So thank you, everybody, for your participation. Thank you. A special word to Tim Gillen for his work through the years of the 3 years of the project to make a success of it with the partners. And I wish you all a pleasant evening, and do make use of the toolkits and the information and the resources that are on the Agora website. Thank you, everybody, and farewell.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you, partners.
Since most families don't expect to have a child with special needs, you might find the answers you are looking for and support through early childhood intervention. Early childhood intervention services support families and children in various situations, from birth up to 7 years of age. Families with children with disabilities often have to travel for examinations and expert care. The child is forced to meet with experts in the environment of various outpatient offices. Therefore, the early childhood intervention counselor visits the family in their home as often as the family needs it and helps them in their decision-making. The difficulties associated with a child's disability can result in stressful interactions for the family or isolation from their extended family or social community. That's why the early childhood intervention counselors look for ways to strengthen the family and how their relationships within the extended family and social network can be included. Uncertainty and fear that their child's development won't be supported adequately generally forces the parents of children with special needs to pour all of their hope into specialists. It causes them to not trust or act on their own capacities and intuition. That's why the early childhood intervention counselor works with the parents to find possible solutions within the skills they have so they can implement them into the child's everyday life. Parents of children with special needs often succumb to the false impression that only specialized therapies in a medical environment can help their children develop their abilities, skills, and autonomy. Early childhood intervention services support parents in making good use of learning moments in everyday activities in a natural setting. Families of children with special needs encounter various obstacles on a daily basis, creating sustained pressure on the family and leading to situations in which they can't find the answers. Early childhood intervention services provide the family with information and give them strength so that they can gradually set their priorities and overcome obstacles on their own. The aim of early childhood intervention services is to support the family and their child in maximum self-sufficiency. Every child needs friends and to feel that they are a part of a community. The early childhood intervention services support the family in choosing an environment that would offer the child opportunities for further development. The counselor communicates with educators and helps align the parents' ideals with services offered by various facilities. Successful inclusion of the child in a community will enable both parents to return to work.
Great work. Congratulations. Bye-bye, dear colleagues. Bye-bye. Take care. Tim, thanks a lot for organizing this. And Dimitri, thanks for supporting us. Bye-bye.